Hey, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world today. Hey, listen, Dennis Kaye here with Belize Islands Real Estate. And I have been putting together this webinar for some time now. I just want to give you guys a glimpse of how I think about investing in Belize when it comes to someone who wants to actually live on the island full time. They're coming down with a pocket full of cash and they're just wondering, what are my options as far as where I live, how I live. Should I rent an apartment? Should I build apartments? Should I rent a house? Should I build homes? How should I think about when I move to Belize? Just what is the best and highest use of my funds? And also, what am I looking for as far as how am I going to use my time? Do I want a part-time job? Do I want a business? Do I want to just have the freedom to sit on the beach and drink, cocktails all day? Whatever you want to do. So in these next few slides, I've been having a real live conversation with a potential client. So we've had a couple of Zoom calls now, and he's coming down with a pretty substantial amount of money, 500,000 US, so $500,000 US. And the question he's been kicking around is, what should I do with these funds? What is the best use of these funds? And how do I see myself transitioning from life in the US to life on the island? All right, so for the purposes of this video, I'm going to take this pocket of money that he has, this little bit of a war chest that he's going to come down to Belize with, and I'm going to try to answer the question, what would you potentially do with this 500,000? All right, so I'm going to go through two scenarios with you, and these numbers are subject to change percentage wise. It could go anywhere in either direction, minus 25%, plus 25%. But I think these numbers should be very interesting to many of you, whether or not you have 500,000 to invest or 100,000 or a million. All right, so let's just kind of go through the scenarios here. So the first option that we've been talking about with this particular client is to buy a piece of land. The piece of land could be at Secret Beach, it could be on the East Coast, North, South, doesn't matter where the land is. But the land itself, by the time you buy the land, get it ready, landscape it, let's say the land cost 100,000 US. And then on that piece of land, you build a main house and you furnish it. So you're gonna have about 175,000 to like a smaller 2-bedroom main house. And we're going with concrete on this particular scenario. So concrete, 175 square feet on average, depending on the style. So you get about 175,000 into the main house. And if you're going to build two smaller rental units, again, for about 175,000 for both because they're smaller, add a pool and amenities, you're looking at about 50,000 for that. So you get about 500,000 into a nice main house, two rentals, a pool, good location. All right. So that's your overall investment. Now, what does your return look like on that? Your financial return and your lifestyle return? Well, the main house is going to be owner occupied. All right. So because of that, he's not going to get any rental income from that. And he's going to have to pay his own insurance out of pocket. So he's got his insurance, his utilities, his maintenance, his small amount of property taxes. So let's say all that comes to about $400 a month or $4,800 a year. All right. So he's paying $4,800 a year to live in his own house, and it's his own house. All right, so it's completely the way he wants it. He decorates it. It's his own home, just like you'd have your own home in the United States or Canada. All right, and with the other two rental units, let's say he's renting those out for 150 US a night, and he's getting about 50% occupancy. So he's got about 182 nights that he's renting, and so the gross on that would be 150 times 182 times 2. So he's looking at getting about 5,400 a year, from those rental units gross. Now, out of that 54,600 on those rental units, he's going to have to pay his insurance. He's paying the utilities, all right, because it's a vacation rental. He's paying some maintenance on it. Let's say that comes to 4,800 a year. So the potential net profit, all right, as he's renting these out is 49,800. All right, so he's getting that in, just under 50,000. But remember, he's also paying this 4,800 a year for him to live in his own house. So let's say he's getting about 45,000 a year profit from the $500,000 investment, right? So he invested 500,000. He has a beautiful home to live in. And he's also getting about $45,000 a year in cash, which is easily going to cover his, food and travel and, island life. All right. So he's got a nice little business there. Now, what are the pros and cons of doing this? Well, the pro is the owner has their own home, and there's something to be said for having your own home just the way you want it. All right. So you can add value, you can add, whatever it is that you're wanting to add to your home. You can build a little gym, a sauna, you can, have it exactly the way you want it. All right. It's decorated the way you want. Everything is exactly the way you want it. Also, with this scenario, he's got an income producing asset on his property. All right. So he's got these rental units. And over time, this little business now has a good opportunity to increase in value, right? He's going to see some capital appreciation over time. So what that means is that if and when he goes to sell, he can sell what's there at value, adding up the cost of the land and what's there, but also he can sell it as a business, right? So there's always a multiplier. How much could I sell this business for that kicks off X dollars amount of year in profit? Now, what are the cons? Well, is a little limited as to location, simply because of the price of the lots, right? So for $100,000 to find a lot big enough to do this project on, he's probably not going to be able to get, for sure, a beachfront lot or a second or third row lot. He's probably going to have to go in a little bit. And does he want to be, in a little bit? Is that okay? Would he rather be somewhere closer to the water for himself? And also with this scenario, the owner has taken on his own part-time job. All right. So to get this, this 182 nights, he's going to be doing some sales and marketing. He's going to be on the computer a lot, dealing with clients, booking, negotiating prices. When the clients come down, he's going to be doing the check-in, checkouts, the housekeeping. These numbers are here are him doing all the work. All right. Doing the maintenance, doing the, washing the sheets, cleaning the place. This doesn't include any sort of salary for any sort of housekeepers or whatnot. If he did want to make this hands-off business, all right, then he's going to have to hire a manager to manage this property. And they usually take about at least 20 to 25%. All right. So imagine he was making, let's say, the potential here of, just under 50,000. Imagine you reduce that now by 20 or 25% because you're hiring out that part of the business. All right. Still making good money. But in this scenario, he's actually, doing the work himself. All right. So let's go to, oh man. Am I recording? All right, I'm recording. All right, sorry about that, guys. I got a little confused here for a minute. All right, so now let's go to option number 2. All right, option number 2 is he still wants to come down and live on the island. He takes that same 500,000 and he invests in mortgages or notes. Now, the way this works in Belize is he can do this with anything. He can do this with buying and selling an apartment or a condo, or buying and selling vacant land. That's one of my favorites. Or let's say in this case, he buys 2 lots, can be in the same area, can be side by side, and he builds 2 single family homes. All right. So he's got about 250,000 into each home. So 500,000 for 2 homes. And now he sells those on a 10-10-10 program. So the selling price is 250, down payment is 25,000. So he gets that back in his pocket. Realistically, a lot of that might just go for realtor fees if he uses a realtor on that. But he's got about the balance on that, 225,000. So 225,000 at 10% interest for 10 years, 10-10-10 program. He's got just under $3,000 of income or a payment coming in per house. All right. So if you look at that, just under 3,000 per house, he's got 5,946 coming in per month times 12 months a year. He's got 71,352 coming in. All right. Now, how does that compare to the rental units? Well, this is coming in every month. All right. So this is not dependent on renters coming down or renters experience, right? He doesn't have any work to do on this. Once he sells the homes, just collects his check every month. And on this scenario, he's not out of pocket any money on those units anymore because he sold them. So the new owner They pay their own property taxes, their own insurance, their own utilities. So he just gets this pocket of money in. Now, the problem is, where's he going to live? All right, so let's say he goes and rents an apartment. Let's say he goes to a place like Ambergris Lake Villas or Mar Laguna, where he can rent a nice 2-bedroom with a beautiful view for about $1,500 a month. All right. So now, as a renter, he is only responsible for his utilities. So the utilities, let's say, is water and his, electric is around $350 a month. Remembering that the apartment owner is going to be paying the insurance and the property taxes and the HOA fees. So now let's take this scenario. He's spending about $2,200 a year to live on the island full time as far as his housing is concerned. So if he takes his gross income from his properties of 71,352 minus his living expenses, he's getting about just under 50,000 a year that he can live on. All right, so what are the pros and cons of this, right? Because the numbers look real similar, right? 49,152 to compare to about 45,000 the other scenario. Well, pros and cons of this. Well, first of all, he's renting an apartment. So what are the pros and cons in that? Well, he's not having to care for any of the maintenance. So the hot water heater breaks, he calls up the landlord and says, look, my hot water heater broke, come and fix this thing for me. He's not responsible for any of the HOA fees, not responsible for insurance, property taxes, anything like that. This also gives him the freedom to come and go as he pleases. If he decides, I don't want to be in this apartment anymore, I want to go live somewhere else on the island, or maybe I want to spend a year in Cape Caulker, maybe I want to spend a year on the mainland in Placencia or Corozal, Cayo district, or maybe I don't want to be in Belize this year. Maybe I want to go live in Thailand for a year, whatever. He has that freedom to up and move, come and go as he pleases. Also, he hasn't tied himself down to a part-time job. Now, let's go back because there's something really interesting that can happen here. Let's say he goes with option one, but instead of now, living in the house year round, he decides to travel 6 months a year. Well, now this main house can become an income producing asset, right? So main house, maybe that rents for a little bit more per night. It's a larger home, maybe a little bit more spacious. That's getting 200, 225 a night, getting some occupancy on that. So now, because he's not living there full time, this becomes an income producing asset. But I don't want to get, too many, moving pieces in the mix, because we're trying to compare apples to apples. You said you want to live here full time, 12 months a year occupancy in your own home compared to 12 months a year occupancy in an apartment. So let's go back to the pros and cons of the apartment. All right. So you can come and go as he pleases. Now, what are the cons? Well, first of all, if you're doing this scenario and you're just renting, and you've already sold these properties, you're getting payments on now, you don't have an appreciating asset anymore. So there's nothing you can add value to, right? It's not like you can build up this business and then sell it sometime in the future. So you kind of lost that opportunity. So at the end of the day, you just got to ask yourself, which one of these two scenarios do I find myself most interested in? Am I looking to have my own home on my own property in Belize with a little business, something where I can interact with people, I can add value, I get my income, I can, build relationships, because, there's a lot that goes into this whole Airbnb rental thing if you're doing it yourself. And there's a lot of potential there. You're going to be meeting people that come down to Belize who are like-minded. Perhaps that could translate into being able to offer them something else. For example, maybe now that you have experience coming down and building, maybe you could, get your builder's license or something, or you start to offer them home packages. So there's always things you can do, right? This is going to be your new business, your new project, your new hobby in life, right? Or you say to yourself, you know what? I'm not looking for a part-time job. I don't really see myself, interacting with clients and dealing with that. I kind of want to just be able to rent, live my life, come and go as I please. Now, it's interesting. I'll add one more caveat to this whole scenario here, is this particular client has a skill set that translates really well to being able to work online. All right. So I'm not sure what his hourly wage would be, what he could charge for consulting or little side projects. But I'm guessing probably, let's just, for number's sake, I'm throwing out at least $100 an hour. All right. So if he chooses to come down and pick up a little side business. Let's say he only wants to work, 10 hours a week. All right. So $100 an hour times 10 hours a week. It's $1,000 a week times 4,000 bucks a month times 12. All right, 48,000. Now look what just happened. And I did not think about these numbers beforehand. He invested the 500, all right, in his own home in the rental units to make about 45,000 net per year, right? He's taking on a part-time job for that, right? If he works in that part-time job, let's say, he's probably going to be working more than 10 hours a week doing that. By the time he does his sales and marketing and booking and checking in the clients, checking out the clients, remember, he's doing all that himself. He's probably going to work more than 10 hours a week. But let's say it took him 10 hours a week. He's doing that for the return of about 45,000. If he doesn't want to do that and says to himself, you know what? Let me just invest in these mortgages, in these notes, whatever it might be. He could do the same thing with land, by the way. So the 500,000, let's say he invested in 5 lots. Each lot was 100,000. He did the same thing. Bought the lots at maybe 90, sold it for 110. So he's got about $100,000 note. Same thing. He's making that, that cash every year. Or he says to himself, you know what? Let me just go ahead and pick up some side business. Maybe 1 month I work, 40 hours a week and then take the other 3 weeks off, depending on my projects. I'm making 48,000 a year in these little side projects. All right. So those are the 3 scenarios. Very interesting, to me, how this all pencils out. And one is not better than the other. I think they both have tremendous potential. I like the whole aspect of buying and building for that experience. Just that, I'm going to find the lot. I'm going to work with an architect. I'm going to work with a builder. I'm going to, at the end of the day, I'm going to have my own home, somewhere to hang my hat, somewhere to, entertain, build memories for my family. Look, this is our Belize home. This is what, we're going to build up. We're going to come back every year, or we're going to live there full time for a period of years. Or say to yourself, you know what, with my $500,000, I'm going to invest in some freedom. The freedom to come and go as I please. Hey, I want to spend a year or 2 in Belize. Great. I want to then up and move to to France or Dubai, Australia, Thailand, wherever. You have that freedom now, and you have that income coming in to do that with. So if this makes sense, hopefully these numbers weren't too confusing for you, but this is just to give a little bit of a scenario. Now, I know I probably missed some things as far as line items go, but pretty much you look at these numbers. It's not very difficult to figure this out in terms of what it's going to cost, your input as far as what it's going to cost you to get in the game at this level. But again, you don't have to go with 500,000. So imagine the same scenario using 50,000 or 100,000. Now, of course, you're not going to be able to do as much with 50 or 100 as you could with 500, but this should give you an idea on a sliding scale of where your numbers could be. All right. So listen, guys, hope this is helpful. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, if you prefer one of these models over another, or maybe you even see other opportunities that maybe I can incorporate into these examples, let me know, and be happy to work with you on your plans. All right, take care. Dennis Caye here, living the dream in Belize and beyond. Talk to you soon.